when I was in the penitentiary, I was out in Terre Haute, Indiana, Gladiator School. I got a small team. There's like 3 of us from Boston. It's 2,000 people in this place. There's 3 of us from Boston. So I used to make homebrew. I make 4 gallons a week, $25.
Homebrew.
Liquor. Okay. Orange juice, sugar, water, give it a couple hours, ferments, turns into liquor. So I used to make 4 gallons of fake liquor once a week, and I sell it for $25 a gallon. I make $100. And I stopped right there. I made some good stuff, and dudes like, Dre, I need water. I would not go over $100. Because if I went over $100, I know the wolves that live in this place are gonna be like, well, he's making $100. That's just enough to live on. We ain't bothering him. Or that dude making $800? Oh, we about to go pay him a visit. Because I didn't have the strength to hold that down. If they came 20, 30, whatever the deep was, is way deeper than I can get, and I don't have the manpower to fight off whatever's gonna come, so I'm gonna become a victim of my own success. So I was smart enough to say, I'm stopping at $100. Nobody's gonna fight. I'm gonna fight for my 100. And anybody gonna come mess with me for $100. But if I'm making $800 a G a week, I'm getting to visit. So if I'm in Tulsa, you burn down my town, I had to think, damn, I just watched my friends killed. Everything we've owned for the last 100 years is just gone. And there's no police coming to save us. There's no government coming to save us. So what's gonna stop this from happening again if we rebuild it? So I'm going to not build as big. I'm not going to not be as bold. I'm going to try to stay to the cut. And that's a mindset you teach your kids. Don't get too big because they're going to notice you.
Social Brew Podcast. We're here, man, with a familiar face, Andre Norman. Yesterday, we were having a really, really good conversation about how Black people. Is it Black people or is it African American? How should we describe ourselves?
Black. I mean, the African American thing is based on history of African American, but most of the people in America have never stepped foot in Africa or have no direct connect to Africa because during slavery, the first thing they did was disconnect us from Africa. Name, language, family, disconnected. So the Italian Americans, Irish Americans, all these other people that we call / Americans have connections and history to their homeland. We don't, by design, have that.
So you're saying we don't have a connection to Africa as much as a Latino, well, I guess
let's just do Italian American. The Italian people left Italy. They came to America on their own accord, and they worked, and they had families, they had connections and communication. They knew their aunties, they knew grandma, they knew the neighborhood, they knew where they came from. Yeah. And they could also go back and know where they were going. When we came to America, our history was cut, our names were cut, our relationships were cut, our language was cut, our culture was cut. Forget about any of the devastation post. We were just cut off 1,000% from where we came from. So there was no slave, second generation, could get on the boat, go back to Africa and know where he was. So there was so the African-American thing.
Or even how to get back, how to get there.
If you got there, if you managed to get there.
Yeah.
If I took you right now to Liberia, where a lot of us came from, and I dropped you off, you don't know a soul in the country.
Facts.
But if I took an Italian guy and dropped him in Italy, he can find a cousin. Or somebody that knows a cousin.
That's real.
And we don't even have our own names to this day. So the Italian guys, the Irish guys, the Greek guys, whoever else came, they still have their names. So if they go home, your family name, somebody's going to know it. If I go, ain't no Normans in West Africa.
Ain't a whole lot of Shanses either.
Ain't no Shans in West Africa. Ain't no Jones or Johnsons in West Africa. So the African American thing was something they came up with as what are we going to call these people? What are we going to do with these? Afro-American, what it is. It was better than nigger, I guess. But the concept of African American in the context of everybody else who's something American doesn't play the same for us.
Got it.
It's in theory. In theory, technically, it's where we came from.
You know, I'm not this hasn't been, it should be, right? It hasn't been an in-depth study for me in terms of like my heritage and kind of like the systemic racism, systemic.
Because when we land here, by design, we were taught not to want to know our history.
Dang, don't attack me on my own show, bro. Like, God.
We were taught, were taught, we go back to roots. He says, Kunta Kinte, chop his foot. No, you're Toby. The whole thing, let your name go. Let your history go. That was by design, because you can't enslave people who are educated and who have connection, because they'll always be thinking about getting back to where they came from. So part of the transition into slavery was to disconnect history, religion, concept, language, family, anything familiar. So now, second generation, third generation slave, this is all you know. There's nobody speaking to your native tongue. There's nobody talking to you about back home. They're only talking about this.
So I'm like kind of like a fourth generation slave.
For sure. My grandfather was born in 1905. Slavery ended technically in 1865. So my grandfather's dad, my great-grandfather, was most likely a slave because he was born in Virginia. So my great-grandfather would have been a slave. And my grandfather was born 30 years post-slavery ending. But we still got to do the Jim Crow and all the all that stuff. But his father, my grandfather's father, would have been a slave. My grandfather's parents and uncles and aunts would have all been slaves. So he was raised by slaves. That man raised, that man who raised my grandfather raised my dad. So my dad's grandfather was a slave. So we're not going like 10,000 years back. My grandfather was born in 1905, which means his parents would have been born not far behind that. So he grew up post-slave era.
How does the slave mindset travel through generations?
It travels through understanding how the times are. So during slavery, you could not assault a white person. You could not talk bad to a white person. You couldn't buck up. You couldn't get tough with a white person because they just take you out back and kill you. Or they do whatever they wanted to, and there was no laws to protect you. Actually, laws said they had the right to do that. So you understood as a black person, your life was predicated on getting along with this group of people and having them like you. If they decided they did not like you, you did not live. So that's a real thing to wake up in the morning. If these white folks get mad at me, I'm dead. And they can just go buy another one for $13. They can just go buy another slave for $13 or whatever the price is. So I wake up every day walking on eggshells that this man or this woman or this person doesn't get mad at me to the point where they want to kill me. Because it's happened numerous times throughout this 300 years of incarceration / slavery. It's just been a constant thing between breaking slaves, killing slaves, lynching slaves. All that happens on a daily. So if you're growing up in a mindset of, I can be killed at any time. I've witnessed people in my family killed for no reason. I've witnessed brutality daily. I've watched women, they had breeding farms. So to make, when the ships stopped bringing slaves, at some point the ship stopped coming. They started making them here. How do you make slaves? You breed people. They would breed us to make more babies. So when the ship thing started becoming too costly or too timely, like, man, I got 400 slaves on this. Man, I can just have them make babies. So they'd pick women and put them to the side, and they would they would literally breed them. So this is what you're growing up seeing. I'm not even going to go into the rape and molestation of slave owners over slaves. That's a whole nother thing. This guy walking in the house, your mother, your father, the guy walks in the house, drags his mother in the room, has sex with her, and walks out. What does that do to the mindset of the father, of the husband? That this man can have sex with his wife at any time. What was the movie about the butler? Mm-hmm. How did that start?
It started out like
the dude came down, knocked this rape mom, then the son said to dad, yo, dad, what's up? Yeah. He bow. What are you talking? You talking to me? You're property. You are literally property. I just got a dog 2 weeks ago. If I decide I want to go get another dog because I like the color, throw them in the street, give them away. We were property. People have a hard time conceiving the fact we were legally property. We weren't people. We weren't constant. We were property. When Dred Scott sued for his freedom in St. Louis, the Supreme Court said, no, you're still a slave. And then they wrote an act that no black people has the right to come to the federal courthouse seeking relief because you're not people.
Wow.
So when you grow up in a time where it's just, this is the way it is. This is just the way it is. And you have to adjust to that if you want to stay alive.
Yeah. In
this podcasting business, there are some things that you just can't do on this platform and expect to stay positive. If you go into some tirade stuff or whatever the thing is, people will come for you.
Yeah,
people will come for you. It's different now than it was then. Now it's more ethical and integral than it was just personal choice.
Yeah, but there's still teachings that no matter how far removed, there's still like remnants of it. Like, you know, the story of the, mom, why do you take off the legs and stuff like that of a turkey, right? Where they say, well, my mom did it. And they ask their mom, well, my mom did it. And then the reason that, your great grandmother did was because the oven was too small. Right. Right. That's why we took the legs off and just baked the breast, right? But it just passed down. We don't know why.
You just do it.
You just do it. So, I mean, some of that mindset, we probably still have slave mindsets they were saying back in the kind of the 90s. And I don't know if I agree with it like that, but the trophy was for a black man to get successful and marry a white woman.
Because for decades, if not centuries, it was forbidden. So you want the thing you can't have. So I'm not going to say it's true or not true, but it's just a given. Most people want the thing they can't have. They want to explore a place they can't go. That's why people run up on top of mountains, because you're not supposed to. You can't do it, so I'm going to do it. Triathlons. Why are we running 10,000 miles, swimming 10,000 miles, biking 10,000? Because they say we can't do it. People want to do what they're told they can't do. It's like a self-satisfaction thing. So there's some who just say, they just fall in love with who they fall in love with. And there's some, I want this because you said I couldn't have it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be successful because people said I couldn't be. So what's the difference? The prison guards used to tell me, you ain't never gonna be nothing. They used to look at me like I was nothing. They used to laugh because, haha, you think you the boss, but we run you. Now I fly in private jets and I fly over them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I make more than any prison guard in America. And part of my motivation was their attitudes towards me. Not all of them, but enough of them.
And them telling you can't have it.
Telling me I can't have it. Makes me want it. You can't do it, Dave. You can't hit 1 million streams a month. Going for it. Now you hit 1 million, what you want to do now? Now you want to hit 2 million. That's too deep for you, Dave. You can't do 2 million. When I was in prison and I decided I wanted to turn my life around and come home, I came out the next day. I told my team, yo, I figured it out. I'm going home, going to Harvard. They're like, what you talking about? I said, nigga, what? I said, I'm going home, going to Harvard. They're like, nah, Andre, you can't. They told me all the reasons I couldn't. Then I was like, dude, I'm talking about going home and never coming back. They're like, you talking crazy. Now, I could have came out my cell and said to my team, yo, man, this dude owes us some money. We riding on him. They the road. Yo, we got beef with this other ethnic group or this other team or whatever. They the road. Strapped up, let's ride. Man, one of them guys is disrespectful, about to bring them to business. They the road. I said, let's go home and never come back. They all said no. They said, we can go to the creek, but we can't go up that hill. Man, what you talking about? You want to never come back? Why are you talking about never coming back, Trey? This is where we supposed to be.
Hold on. So you tell people, okay, I'm going home and I'm never coming back. And there are some people inside that they truly believe that even if you go home, you have to come back.
They can't see themselves outside the context of what they've been placed in. You're a prisoner, whether it's of a penitentiary or of a neighborhood, of a mindset, of a lifestyle. You are a prisoner. You can't transcend this. Talking white is talking proper. You know what I'm saying? It's talking with intellect. So, oh, you talking white. You crossing, you acting too white. You dressing white. Whatever the thing is, I said, let's go home and never come back here. Harriet Tubman said to some people, including her sister, let's leave and never come back here. What her sister say?
What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Harriet Tubman's sister told her, like, we all ain't meant to run.
Yeah.
That's what she said, Harriet, we all ain't meant to run. And she stayed. She had been conditioned to feel okay with what was oppression. Oppression became normal. Abnormal becomes normal. Yeah. So watching your mom get beat for enough time, it becomes normal. Watching people in the street hustling, it becomes normal. Watching people die. Come on. 500 plus people have died in Chicago this year. It's normal. Yeah. It was becoming normalized now is mass shootings. It was like, oh my God, Sandy Hook, that's crazy. This school, that's crazy. Or not at the mall, not at Walmart, not at the movies. Now it's like you see a mass shooting, you don't even blink.
You just pull out your phone.
It's become normal.
One. Yeah.
Abnormal has become normal. And in slavery times, they burnt down Tulsa. We all know Black Wall Street. Let's take it from the standpoint of you lived there. Yeah. They burned down your city. They killed some of your folks for no good reason other than black folks being successful. If you're a black entrepreneur and you live in Black Wall Street in Tulsa, do you build that back up again?
Ideally, you would think, all right, I built it once, I'm gonna build it again.
Not can you. Can you is yes. Will you? The punishment for building it the first time, it was all burnt down and your people were killed. So do you want to be that successful to draw that type of heat again?
All right, listen, every single week, every episode, you hear me talking about themorningmeetup.com. It's the community. Let me show you what's happening here. Every single morning, Monday through Friday, there's 400 plus people on a Zoom call, right? We're learning, we're talking, we're growing together, and this is you. There's all these people here. It's all these people in the morning meetup. Hundreds of people reading books, growing. We get together quarterly. It's amazing. And for some reason, you just keep looking at, just go to themorningmeetup.com and get in the circle. And then you'll be like way happier. Just themorningmeetup.com. Let's get back to the episode.
Ooh. You learn to stay in your place because you understand this power is bigger than you. When I was in the penitentiary, I was out in Terre Haute, Indiana, Gladiator School. I got a small team. There's like 3 of us from Boston. It's 2,000 people in this place. There's 3 of us from Boston. So I used to make homebrew. I make 4 gallons a week, $25.
Homebrew.
Liquor. Okay. Orange juice, sugar, water, give it a couple hours, ferments, turns into liquor. So I used to make 4 gallons of fake liquor once a week, and I sell it for $25 a gallon. I make $100. And I stopped right there. I made some good stuff, and dudes like, Dre, I need water. I would not go over $100. Because if I went over $100, I know the wolves that live in this place are gonna be like, well, he's making $100. That's just enough to live on. We ain't bothering him. Or that dude making $800? Oh, we about to go pay him a visit. Because I didn't have the strength to hold that down. If they came 20, 30, whatever the deep was, is way deeper than I can get, and I don't have the manpower to fight off whatever's gonna come, so I'm gonna become a victim of my own success. So I was smart enough to say, I'm stopping at $100. Nobody's gonna fight. I'm gonna fight for my 100. And anybody gonna come mess with me for $100. But if I'm making $800 a G a week, I'm going to visit. So if I'm in Tulsa, you burn down my town, I had to think, damn, I just watched my friends killed. Everything we've owned for the last 100 years is just gone. And there's no police coming to save us. There's no government coming to save us. So what's going to stop this from happening again if we rebuild it? So I'm going to not build as big. I'm not going to not be as bold. I'm going to try to stay to the cut. And that's a mindset you teach your kids. Don't get too big, because they're going to notice you. They're going to see you. And then they're going to come do something to you. I called my father from prison, told him I want to go to Harvard University. He said, that's crazy talk. I said, what are you saying? He said, that's crazy talk. Stop talking like that. They're going to hear you.
They're going to hear you.
I said, what are you talking about? This is me, Dad. He's like, no, they're going to hear you. My father grew up in Virginia in the 40s. This is before JFK. This is before MLK. This is before Malcolm X. This is before all of that. When you was just black in the South and you caught a bad one. That's just the way it was. If my father was walking to church on Sunday with his best suit on and some white folks stopped him and told him carry boxes, boy, you better carry them boxes. Or there's punishment. You don't. So he has that mindset of, He couldn't stand in the square of his town and announce to the city he was going to go to Harvard University. They'd have hung him for being an uppity nigga. So when I decide I want to go, he only knows the life that he's had, what he grew up through. So in his mind, that's bad. Yeah. I don't know my father at 15. I know my father at 25, 35, whatever age he was when he had me, when I became old enough to know who he was. Who were you at 15? Were you this confident? Were you this secure? Were you this paid or this established? No. Dave at 15 is a totally different kid.
Yeah.
You're in Jersey trying to find your way, and all the fears that you had from there are still with you.
In some regard, absolutely.
Yeah. And then you're going to pass them to your kids.
So this is how a slavery mindset is passed down, because you imagine somebody that's a slave and then maybe they're free, maybe they're older and they're free by the time their child is old enough to be called free. That slave still has some advice for that child that's free on how to move. And then that child takes that information to their child who's clearly free in some respect.
You're being taught by the people before you. So you see successful people. How did George W. Bush become president? Where did he get the idea from?
His dad.
All day long.
This is how you become that.
So we're expecting great things from Barack's kids because the role model set for them. Yeah. Are you expecting greatness from your kids?
Of course.
Why?
I'm teaching them.
So what if you weren't teaching them?
Or what if I was just teaching a different song?
But teaching is teaching.
Yeah.
They don't have to have this level of success or this type of success, but you're putting effort and energy. You're telling them there's no boundaries.
Yeah. But
I was taught there was boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. If somebody was taught there are boundaries, that's just, I'm going to teach you a different song, and then that child can see. Like, if I'm starting to understand just through this conversation and just having different conversations with you, why the environment is so important and how people get stuck. And it's really not 100% someone's fault for having a negative thought process or becoming poor or becoming an angry person. Staying poor.
How about this? Today, 2022, December 2022, they had elections about a couple weeks ago. And on the ballot was an amendment to eradicate the 13th Amendment that said slavery is still possible if you're convicted of a crime. 5 states voted to say, should we take this off our books? The 13th Amendment says slavery is over, except for if you are convicted of a crime and sentenced, then slavery can be instituted. And when they did that at the end of slavery, that gave them laws that created the black codes, to lock us back up, put us right back on the same plantations. Fast forward to not 1865, 2022, 5 states within the last couple of weeks voted on should they eradicate that from their state constitution. 4 states voted yes. Louisiana voted no. We want to keep that clause in our state constitution that if you're locked up, we can make you work without pay. That's right now.
I never even thought about that. I've heard of it. We hear people talk, but it just finally hit me. That is slavery at its highest level. Like, let's say, for instance, if you are a slave on the street, like you see the people like doing some work, that is slavery. And if they try to run, you get shot. Or if you try to buck up, you get shot.
Dave, the Constitution of the United States, the 13th Amendment says slavery is no longer legal. You can no longer enslave a person, make them work with no pay, story. Except for, there's an except for, if a said person is convicted of a crime and sentenced, that person can be put into slavery. He or she can be made to work as a slave. Clear. It's been like that since 1865. That was the amendment. And the deal was the southern states, you just have jaywalking, loitering, whatever the thing is, they give you any case, then they put you right back in jail and they put you right back on a plantation, make you work for free again.
Oh my gosh.
We all love Lincoln because history says. Lincoln has said 1,000 times, I only care about keeping the union together. I ain't concerned with slaves. Slavery was a thing that divided the North from the South. That was like the big thing. There were people in the North who weren't for it. Those people in the South weren't for it. But the baseline, Lincoln said, my big thing is keeping the union together. Slavery secondary. And that was a reason the South was like, we can do our own thing, is because we have slaves. So they need to shut the slaves down or slavery to stop the South from becoming strong enough to, you know what I'm saying, to break free inside its own countries. So it was never about us.
Yeah.
And you can go get any Lincoln speech on YouTube, and he'll say it 100 times. It's not about the slave. It's about keeping the United States together.
Gotcha. So walk me through the effects of us Black people as we are going after these goals and these dreams and wanting to be successful. What do you see? Because you're the only person that I know that is truly on both sides. I mean, I like, you are around a very, very wealthy group of individuals who don't look like us, but you're also around a bunch of successful individuals that do look like us, and you're around a bunch of people who
in the streets
don't have anything.
So, they got something. They got some. But so I hang out with extremely rich, wealthy, we call it white folks. I hang out with extremely wealthy. I just got the richest Black man in America as a client. Literally, just signed the deal last week. So,
congrats. Who is it?
You know Robert Smith.
Yeah, just one.
I wasn't gonna put him on blast, but him. So I just started working with his foundation and his team. I am a new consultant for them, so it's a pleasure to work for him. To me, I'm privileged to I almost do it for free, just to pay homage that he made it that far, and he's blazing the trail, and he's trying to make it. The stuff he's doing, I mean, makes me want to work for free. He's trying to make sure every Black student in an HBCU goes away debt free. He's trying to make cities better. So it's like a cause. It's not a campaign. So helping him, to me, it makes me go to sleep well at night.
Listen, if I was going to teach you how to make $1 million, would you give me 10,000? Like, if I had a course teach you how to make $1 million a year positive, you're going to make $1 million, would you give me 10,000? Of course you would. It's no brainer, right? So in a calendar year, we make 7 figures with the podcast. But there's 21 things that I extracted from that you're going to need to launch your podcast. But I only got time to give you 3 right now. One is you need a distribution platform. The distribution platform is what you upload your podcast to. That platform sends it to Spotify, Apple, Google Play, so that your supporters can actually listen to your podcast. You're also going to need a microphone. You need a really good microphone so it's crispy audio. And 3, you need an income strategy. This is not necessarily a hobby, unless you're going to make it a hobby. But I can teach you how I made the 7 figures with these 21 things. Now, the good news is you don't have to give me 10,000. My ebook is only $37, okay? So listen, go to podcastebook.com and get the 21 things that you need. And I can explain it in detail, all the things that you need, okay? Podcastebook.com. Let's get to the episode.
But I work with the wealthiest Black people, the wealthiest white people, and rich Black folks. You rich right now. Yeah. You rich. And then I work with folks who are still in the street.
And people are in prison. You work with kids. You work with everybody.
Kids. I was at I went to Curacao last week. I had 250 people fly from Amsterdam, Holland, to Curacao to hear me speak. I gave a speech. At the end of my speech, it was like 10 local people. Sister stood up, said, "We need you here on the island. And we need you to speak to the people on the island." She picked up the phone, called the prime minister of the country, and he asked me to stay. So I stayed for another week. Went to prison for 7 days, went to like 15 schools. This was out in the community, just being helpful. To have a prime minister of a country ask you to stay and lend your services to make people better, to me, it's an honor. Yeah. And this is a crazy part. I know there's Black people in Curacao. Then I came to understand a little bit deeper.
And Curacao is a Spanish.
No, it sounds Spanish. It's a Black island. It's a Dutch island.
Dutch is Black?
Dutch is Netherlands, Amsterdam.
Certain subjects I'm good at, bro.
So what happened is during slavery, most slave ships didn't come from Africa to America. They hit the Caribbean. So the Dutch slave people would take them to Curacao. the British slave people taking them to their place. The Spanish people, everybody who had slaves had islands throughout the Caribbean. And that's where they used to bring their slaves to. Then they would sell them to America, sell them to South America. We weren't the only ones that came here. A lot of people went throughout the Caribbean and down south and South America. So everybody would bring them over, hit their island, and then sell from there. Curacao was the Dutch. British had Bahamas and Jamaica, and everybody had their little island. At the time of the Civil War, Florida wasn't even a state. Florida was just like still owned by the Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So if you go look at the states and when it became a state, Florida was not a state during the Civil War.
Got it. Okay.
So all these islands, most of them are black inhabited. Jamaica, Bahamas, Bermuda, Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Martin, St. Croix, St. Thomas, Curacao, Trinidad, all black islands. There's a few Spanish ones in there, but most of them are black islands.
Got it.
Or black people.
Got it.
I didn't know all of them, but I've since studied.
So walk me through some of the effects that you see, especially just being well-rounded, traveling the world. What are you seeing some of the residual effects of the like slavery era that affects us as a people today as it pertains to entrepreneurship and elevation?
Manipulation of the people in power. And the people in power aren't just white folks. It could be you, it could be me, it could be anybody in power. If you understand somebody's weaknesses, you use it against them. It's that simple. It's emotional manipulation and mental manipulation. If I know you are scared or nervous of, then I'm going to use that against you. You know what I'm saying? And I can sway people left or right. When Muhammad Ali fought George Foreman in Africa, George showed up with an attack dog. He thought it was just his pet. The people saw it as an attack dog, and Muhammad learned that the people see German Shepherds as police dogs. And he used that to turn the people of Africa against George Foreman. He has a police dog. What are you talking about? I grew up with a German Shepherd. But I didn't go to Africa with it.
Right.
So Muhammad Ali, one of our greatest heroes, used the mental mindset of the people who were tormented by police dogs against George Foreman to turn the people against him for that fight, to get to get favor. So people in power understand weak-minded people. So if I want to sell you something, if I want to get you to do something for less, I'm going to use that against you. So Andre's a big brand. So you should be, I don't have to pay you your worth because you're working for me. Mm-hmm. You get people who want to come in here and work for you. I'll work for less. I'll just do an internship. And if you let them do that, you're taking advantage of your celebrity. Yeah. And they're not having. So are we paying people a real wage? Yeah. Or are we using our celebrity / power to work against this man trying to come up out of the mud? He's trying to come out the mud, and I can afford to pay you. But I'm not gonna, because you don't have the leverage to ask for it. Right. And you don't have as many options. So black slaves, when they got free, had no options. So when a new sharecropper, no longer slave owner, says, I'm gonna pay you 2 cents a day versus 3 cents a day, what options he got? Yeah. So are we doing a variation of what was done to our forefathers when they came out of slavery, not giving people a fair wage just because we can get away with it? Yeah. And so many people I hear are proud of paying people less, proud of making people intern. They think it's a come up. Man, listen, you're devastating us. You save $2,000-$3,000 a week, but are you really needing that $2,000-$3,000? This is gonna make a difference in this man or woman's life? Yeah. So what I see is people taking advantage of those who are still in the mud, those who are still coming out of mental oppression, those who are still living in poverty. Mm-hmm. They're trying to work their way up. And those of us who are in power, are we empowering them? Now, I'm not going to pay someone if they can't do the job. Yeah. But if you can do the job, you should get paid. I agree. A fair wage.
For sure. So we're using mental manipulation almost like because the slave owners would appoint some of our own people over some of the slaves. So that, like, we was in the field together, right? Yeah. But now I have some sort of higher status, and I'm using that against the person I was just working with.
Of course.
Anything else?
Emmett Till. I just saw the movie. We all know the story. Boy from Chicago, lived in a free city.
Mm-hmm. My bad. Go for it. Sorry.
Emmett Till lived in a free city, Chicago. He went to Mississippi, and it didn't work out well because he didn't understand the law of the land in Mississippi.
Right.
And it's the same thing now. It's like he went down and everybody down. And the craziest part about that movie was black people helped beat him to death. If the movie was accurate, and I can't say, they had black people who helped in that process of beating Emmett Till. It's never told in public. We don't mention that part, but it was. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if that part is accurate, that's mental manipulation. I better do what these people say because I got no options. And I got to stay here with these people after y'all leave.
Yeah. I think as a people too, we have a fear of kind of falling, like especially if you reach some sort of level of success, we have a fear of falling back to where we were. So, or kind of like how the bus boycott, you know, with Rosa Parks.
Yes.
All black people wasn't with that.
No.
They wasn't with it. They was like, yo,
do you know her house where she lived in Alabama is like they sectioned it off. It's like a monument now. I went to Alabama and I went to the roads. It was like a housing development, and her house where she actually lived is encased.
Right.
It's like a museum now. But if you go to the slavery museum, the lynching museum in Montgomery, it will change your mind. Your thinking has to be impacted when slavery ends, and it's white-black. So the white folks, okay, you're free because the government said so. Not because I want to let you go. The government said so. And I'm free, not because you wanted to let me go, because the government said so. And I've been taught my entire life that I don't matter and that you're right. I've taught myself that I'm right and you don't matter. So let's go to the next generation. What do you think I'm teaching my kid? Those black people don't count. They're less than. What is the black folks teaching their father? Watch out for the white folks. Know your place. Don't get caught up. And this is generations. Until the advent or the interjection of the third demographic, Asians, Latinos, whatever the third demographic is, the law said we were free. The law said we could. But when white folks are down there at that corner, we weren't messing with them. So when the Asians come in and the law says that they can build houses and they can own businesses and they can do this stuff, we stood back and we watched. And the Asians are like, gonna do their thing. I go, what you doing? What you doing? You better know. What's something wrong with your shoulder, bro? What's the matter? And they would go open the business.
Right.
And that's why throughout black communities in America, I'm just gonna be nice and say 2/3 of the businesses are owned by different people other than us, because they aren't scared of going against the established system.
Right. So what you're saying is like Asians come over, they don't experience the fear of the.
They don't have the history.
They don't have the history
embedded in them for the fear.
For sure. And their parents haven't taught them that, hey, don't start no business over there. They're going to burn you down. So the Chinese come on this. I learned this from Dre yesterday. He was like, Chinese come over and say, yo, why? We're just going to build that. Like there's no apprehension. It's just, we just going to build it. If it's for sale, we'll just buy it and we'll just build it.
If you have a history and lineage of your people being tormented, killed, tortured, murdered, segregated, then you're gonna think twice before you just jump out and do something. This is still a predominantly white country.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like, man, I'm not going against it. I'm gonna play it safe.
Yeah.
That's what our parents were taught, and their parents taught them, play it safe when dealing with the establishment, because the establishment can kill you.
Trey, we're going to have another version of this conversation, man. I just wanted to sit down and chop it up. I think we need to just chop it up on a regular, man.
We got to do the mindsets of the people in America based on the migrations post-slavery. So everybody from Louisiana who just voted to keep slavery intact, 2022, a lot of those folks migrated west. You go to California, you meet a lot of people from California whose families from Louisiana. And you get people from Mississippi and who went to Detroit, people from here who went there. So then it goes back to, this is real, the state that you lived in as a slave wasn't all equal. So if you was a slave in Louisiana, it was different than being a slave in Tennessee, slave in Virginia. It never snowed in Alabama. That means you worked 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. There was no field shut down. If you was a slave in Virginia, you shut down for like 3-4 months because there was snow on the ground. You had to do some other stuff, which wasn't as labor intensive. And then when slavery ends, people in Texas for 2 years post-emancipation didn't know, because they're so far removed from the North. The whole thing came from the North. So if you're in Virginia, you're in Delaware, you know what I'm saying? You're in those sections. You're going to interact with free people and people who believe in freedom a lot more than somebody in Texas.
Yeah.
Because you're just at the end of the road. So it's like understanding the mindsets of the people who held you, the culture of the people, because it was French, there was Spanish, there was British, there was all these different mindsets. The treatment of the slaves were different by region. So slave owners treated people differently in different sections. Everybody was on the Willie Lynch status, even though it was one of the big things. How did they torture their slaves in Louisiana versus Tennessee versus Virginia versus South and North Carolina? That plays a part. The type of torture you went through deals with the type of social construct that you have and mindset you have going forward. Right. Trauma is real.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Listen, comment below if you want to continue this conversation, because we got to figure out the deep-rooted cause of some of the things we do, and it's affecting our success and our lineage and our legacy. So, Dre, we got to wrap.
Last thing.
Yes, sir.
People think I'm a speaker. I'm a therapist.
That's a fact.
When I get on stage, I don't speak. I do therapy because my goal is to heal people, not just inspire you.
Yeah.
So when I go on stage, I understand when I'm in a certain part of the country, certain part of the world, the traumas that those people suffered throughout history and how to help them heal from those past traumas and past wounds so they can be better people.
I love it. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, man, and how they can get you to come do therapy on stage.
Therapy on stage. No, I mean, I'm saying, you brought me to the light. I came to Atlanta, you're my guy.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying, so no matter where I go, you go. You know what I'm saying? That's it. I'm like, yo, I'm in the room, you in the room.
Got you.
I'm saying, and I go out of my way to try to build bridges with no expectation.
For sure. That's a fact.
Because so many of us have been in situations where there's been so much grimy stuff happening. And so you have the distrust. And distrust is real. So it's my job they can say, well, I did good business with Dre. I might have did bad business with these 5 people, but it was a good thing with Dre.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. That's my currency to our people, that just set the example that you can just be helpful with no expectation and no back end and just help people and keep moving.
That's a fact.
If it comes back, it comes back. If it don't, it comes back to somebody else.
That's a fact. How do they get in touch with you, man?
Instagram. You put me on IG. You told me I wasn't lit. Listen,
you're lit now.
I had a video go 9 million. I had 9 million views and 1 million comments. Am I lit yet?
You're lit. Way later than me. I ain't never had that before.
But you put me on game.
God, what is your Instagram?
At Andre Norman.
At Andre Norman. Listen, man, we got to wrap. So we're gonna bring him back, y'all. Put it in the comments. Make sure you follow him. Dre, appreciate you, my brother.
Anytime.
This all came from a conversation yesterday. I was like, oh, we need this. So make sure you follow Andre Norman, man. We will be back with another installment. I promise you. We out. Peace.